Revealed, after 7 incredible days away, my heartwarming return exposed an unexpected bond. Jake had been gone for a week, but the moment he stepped through the door, the air crackled with emotions left unspoken. The familiar scent of motor oil mingled with home-cooked meals, and as he scanned the room, his heart swelled at the sight of the worn family couch, careful not to betray the fatigue written on his sister Emily's face. She looked up, and in her eyes, he saw a mix of joy and apprehension, a silent question begging to be answered. "Hey, sis. Miss me?" he joked, but the smile on his face felt more like a shield against the reality of the distance between them. Emily shifted in her seat, the warmth of family overshadowed by the icy divide they had both felt during his absence. Jake's phone buzzed with notifications from the training program he'd just completed. His gut churned with excitement about the new skills he learned, yet it paled in comparison to the churning worry for Emily's struggles at school. As they sat down for dinner, the conversation buzzed around trivial things: the weather, a neighbor's new truck, but the words fell flat. Each awkward pause felt like a weight on Jake's chest. He remembered how close they were, sharing secrets and dreams. Now, it seemed like they were both trapped in separate worlds, haunted by whispers of financial woes and school bullies. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed since his return, and the harsh reality loomed over their lives like a thundercloud. The repair shop's bills stacked higher, threatening to crush their family's hopes. Each time Jake glanced at Emily, he could see her spirit dimming. The whispers of classmates targeting their family's finances cut deep and jagged, and he wished he could sweep it all away. Then, as if fate were mocking their shared pain, Mr. Carson appeared. A sharp businessman with a dark glint in his eye, he presented Jake with a tantalizing offer, a chance at financial stability trading integrity for the fleeting promises of prosperity. Torn apart by the ethics Jake held dear, he envisioned the pressure on Emily, a girl trying to navigate her adolescent world with way too much weight on her shoulders. Fueled by righteous anger, Jake organized a community gathering to rally support. He put it all on the line, bearing their struggles, sharing laughter punctuated with tears, and emphasizing the importance of solidarity in tough times. The air was electric with empathy, and needles of tension pierced through him when he discovered that Mr. Carson had history with him, memories tangled in childhood camaraderie and feelings of betrayal. As Jake stood at the center of the crowd, he could hear the murmurs ripple through the audience. The great divide between who they were and who they could be felt palpable. He understood, in that moment, that this was not just about their family but about facing the shadows of existence together. Would he embrace change for financial relief, or stand firm and protect his sister's fragile dignity? The silence that followed thrummed with uncertainty, leaving Jake teetering on the edge of an unknown future, not only for him but for Emily too. The question loomed: what would he choose? The community gathering ended, but the weight of every word lingered in Jake's mind. The murmurs, the faces staring back at him, disappointment, fear, hope, they all seemed to swell in his chest. He felt exposed, raw, like a wound laid bare for all to see. As people began to disperse, clinging to their own worries, Jake's heart raced with unease. He had thrown himself into the spotlight, but the price of that exposure was heavy. Back at home, the light felt dimmer in the early evening. Jake found Emily waiting up in the living room, a plate of leftover pizza in front of her. She had tried to distract herself with a sketchbook, but the pencil lay forgotten, and her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "What happened out there, Jake?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I tried to tell them, he replied, rubbing the back of his neck, unsure of how to articulate his whirlwind of emotions. "I thought if I spoke about our struggles, if I laid everything bare, maybe they'd help us help you." Her brow furrowed as she processed his answer. "But did you really think that would work?" Her voice cracked, pulling at Jake's heart. "What if they judge us even more?" Jake sank onto the couch beside her, resting his elbows on his knees. I have to believe there's still kindness out there, Em. I know we're struggling, but we can't just give in to the darkness. But what if it doesn't help? She replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. What if no one comes through? What if Mr. Carson's offer is the only way? He felt the sting of her words, an echo of the choices he had to make. I can't betray what's right, not for money. The conviction in his voice lost some strength as he remembered Mr. Carson's eyes, filled with temptation and familiar disappointment. The past was a snake coiled tight, ready to strike, silence stretched between them. Jake watched as the shadows crept across the walls. Burdens hung heavily in the air, neither of them willing to break the silence with shallow reassurances. He sensed that Emily was slipping away, the weight of their circumstances a silent thief of their bond. Tell me you believe in us, he finally urged, hope flickering in his voice like a candle in the dark. I want to, she admitted softly, meeting his gaze with a flicker of determination. But can you really promise that we'll be okay? With a deep breath, Jake firmly held her gaze. We will find a way, Em. Together. Always. She nodded slowly, the dim glow of hope igniting something between them. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, a jolt of surprise interrupting their moment of introspection. They exchanged wary glances. Who could it be? Jake stood, anxious and curious. I'll check. As he neared the door, he could feel Emily's breath hitch behind him. Opening it, he was confronted by the last face he expected to see, Mr. Carson, his smile sharp under the porch light. Jake, about our offer I think we need to talk, the businessman said, eyes glinting with opportunistic interest. Jake could feel Emily's presence receding as the door creaked wider. The memory of their earlier talk buzzed through his thoughts, battling with the questions that Mr. Carson's proposal raised once more. Could this conversation change everything? Would it escalate into a devastation that threatened to burden them further? As the door hung open, Jake realized that this moment could pivot them into a future filled with choices, risks, and perhaps even betrayal. He took a deep breath, composing himself to meet whatever was about to unfold. Jake felt the air thicken around him, electric with uncertainty. Mr. Carson stepped forward, his presence filling the doorway even more than the dim porch light. Jake, I think we both know this is an opportunity, one you can't afford to ignore, he said, his tone smooth yet insistent. The words hung there, heavy in the air. Each syllable seemed to echo between Jake and Emily, transforming the gentle warmth of their earlier moment into a cold, hard truth. Could he really trust this man, a person whose motives were as cloudy as a stormy sky? Mr. Carson, Jake began, his voice steadier than he felt. I appreciate everything you've done for the community, but I have to be sure this is what's best for us. Let us not pretend here, Jake, Carson cut in, his smile faltering momentarily. This isn't just about you. It's about Emily. She needs treatment, and you know as well as I do that the clock is ticking. You can either continue to hope for generous neighbors or accept my offer and take control of this situation. Emily's breath caught again, drowning out everything else. Every argument Jake had prepared vanished in an instant, replaced by a single image of her frail figure, held tightly within their tiny living room. He wanted to protect her, he wanted to fight for her future. Control? Jake echoed, his heart racing. Did he really have control if his choices reverted to the dark paths he so desperately tried to escape? What about the cost? Carson leaned in, lowering his voice almost conspiratorially. The cost is what you make it, my friend. But think about the alternatives. You know better than most how unforgiving life can be. You have an opportunity to change your fate, and Emily's too. Isn't that worth it? Jake, please. Emily whispered, her eyes pleading as they darted between them like a trapped bird. Jake's heart twisted. In that moment, he felt the weight of his world pressing heavily on his shoulders. Could he gamble with everything he believed in for the sake of hope and urgency? Would he be the fool that tossed aside morals in exchange for quick relief? I can't just do that, he started, but was interrupted by the sudden bitterness in Carson's voice. Can't? Or one tea? Carson snapped, his facade cracking just enough for Jake to glimpse the wolf beneath. While you ponder your idealism, reality 1T wait. We all have choices to make. Jake's mind raced. He thought of the community, their faces mixed with fear and desperation. Could he tarnish their trust for personal relief? Or could he use Carson's offer to dig deep, fight back in ways that honored his integrity? As Carson smirked, confident that he had Jake cornered, everything felt suspended in time. Think about it, Jake. I'll give you a day. Don't waste it. With that, he turned and strode away, the thud of his footsteps fading down the porch steps, leaving behind a silence filled with unspoken fears. Jake. Emily said softly, her voice quivering as he turned to face her, the storm in his chest boiling over. I don't know, Em. I don't know what to do, he admitted, his heart torn, and as darkness settled beyond their front porch, the choices before him clashed like thunder. The answer wasn't just about survival, it was about honor, love, and the paths that could lead them toward light or plunge them into darkness. In that moment, they were standing on a precipice, the future looming before them like a shadow. Would they step carefully, hand in hand, or allow the weight of doubt to push them apart? As they stared into each other's eyes, the answer felt as much in reach as it was utterly out of grasp. A surge of emotion washed over him. I want to protect you, Em. But at what cost? The words lingered in the air between them, begging for resolution, as the evening deepened around their fragile world. A decision loomed large on the horizon, one that could change everything forever. What would he choose? Jake felt the weight of Emily's gaze as if it could somehow anchor him amidst the swirling uncertainty. They stood there, a fragile moment suspended in the cool night air, where the only sound was the faint rustle of leaves caught in a gentle breeze. Jake, I trust you, Emily said, her voice steadying itself like a ship amidst rough seas. Whatever you decide, I'll be with you. Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, but they also stoked the fire of his inner turmoil. How could he drag her deeper into questionable waters? What if this chance turned into a nightmare? Yet the thought of Emily's suffering longer filled him with a dread that felt heavier than any moral dilemma. I can't let them down, he whispered. Not after everything. Not when they believe in me. As he looked at her, he saw the flickering shadows on her face. They reminded him of their life, the laughter, the joy, and now this suffocating fear that clawed at their happiness. A sense of urgency ignited within him. What if we take it slow? He proposed, the idea forming as fast as it terrified him. Do a bit more research, see if there are other options. I can't just jump into Carson's world without knowing what I'm stepping into. Or you could miss out on the one chance we have. You know it might not come again. She shifted slightly, her own eyes reflecting his turmoil. I felt the moment you needed to take action. Please don't back away from what's right in front of us. How could she be so brave? So clear-headed? Jake sank into her gaze, searching for answers, wanting to convince himself that waiting was the right choice. But doubts loomed like storm clouds, dark and tempestuous. What if it's worse than we think? He pleaded, feeling the sharpness in his throat. What if this leads us down a path I can't return from? Emily took a step closer, her warmth pushing against his cold doubt. Then we fight it together. We've always fought. Her words held a fierce tenderness that made his heart race. There it was again, the unseen bound woven between them, shimmering with the threads of hope and fear, love and despair. Jake clenched his fists, wrestling with the very real possibility that he might have to compromise everything he believed in. He exhaled slowly, letting the nightmare of Carson's influence percolate through his thoughts. He envisioned Emily's face, the way she illuminated his darkest moments, the lightness she brought with her smile. Can we really gamble everything, Em? Trust him even a little? He finally voiced, needing her answer to unravel the tension in him. Sometimes, trust is all we have left, she replied, soft yet unwavering. I believe we can forge a better path together. Her resolve ignited something within him. What if she was right? What if he could indeed turn Carson's threat into an opportunity to protect the community and Emily alike? Maybe there was a way to play this game, to use Carson's offer to rally others. Jake felt a glimmer of something solid beginning to form within the chaos. A strategy, a plan that could balance the scales in their favor. Okay, he said finally, a breath of determination spilling from his lips. Give me a day, Em. I'll figure out a way to confront him, and we'll see if we can marry what he offers with what we believe. But it has to be carefully done. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. That's all I need to hear, Jake. We'll make this work. But even as optimism began to swell in his chest, a nagging sensation curled in the pit of his stomach. The game was much larger than just him, Emily, or even Carson. Through the night, decisions swirled in Jake's mind, drawing maps of action and consequence. Would he truly have the fortitude to step into Carson's world without losing himself? And as he stood there, the ghost of Carson's smirk haunting his thoughts, Jake couldn't shake the growing suspicion that this was just the beginning of a storm they couldn't predict. What awaited him at the end of the day? Would it be a path of light or a plunge into darkness? Only time would reveal the truth. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting an orange glow that wrapped around Jake like a warm embrace. But the feeling was short-lived, fading quickly as he trudged toward the local coffee shop, determination stirring within him. He had made his decision. Today felt like a stepping stone, not just for himself, but for Emily and their community. Stepping inside, the familiar scent of roasted beans mingled with fresh pastries hit him. Jake scanned the room, his heart pounding as he looked for familiar faces. It was a small town, and the morning coffee crowd brought the same mix of friends, neighbors, and locals. Each cup shared created a ripple of community, and today, he hoped to stir that same energy into something bigger. Hey, Jake. The sound of Trevor's voice broke through his thoughts. Jake looked over to find Trevor, his childhood friend, waving him over. Mind if I join? Jake asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Not at all, man. What is going on? You look like you've got a lot on your mind. Trevor leaned in, concern clouding his features. Jake felt the weight of it, everything from the threats looming over them to the trust he needed to build. The decision about Carson pressed on him like a heavy stone. I need to talk about the community. There is something brewing, and it's time we face it. What do you mean? Trevor asked, his eyes narrowing with a mix of curiosity and caution. Carson, Jake said quietly. I think he is using us, but if we're careful, we might be able to turn it back on him. We can't let this fear rule us any longer. And, Emily? Trevor leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting to one of understanding. Is she involved? Absolutely. We're in this together, Jake replied, passion rising in his voice. She is the one who opened my eyes. We need to rally the community, get everyone on board before Carson tries to manipulate any of us. Trevor nodded slowly, absorbing Jake's words. But how? Carson's got money, influence, it won't be easy. I know, Jake said, determination coursing through him. But what if we hold a town meeting? Bring everyone in, share what we know, what we suspect. If we stand united, we can strip him of his power. We have to ignite hope, not only in ourselves but in everyone. The more he spoke, the clearer the path felt. The faces of their neighbors flashed in his mind, fellow parents, shop owners, teachers. Each one was a thread in the fabric of their small town, and together they could weave a shield against Carson's ambitions. I like it, Trevor said, leaning forward. Let us do it. We do the meeting this weekend. But what about Carson? He is not just going to let this happen, you know? Jake swallowed hard, recognizing the truth in Trevor's words. Carson wouldn't easily relinquish his grip. I'll deal with him. I need to face him, understand his intentions better. It's a risk, but if we want to change things, I can't run away. A familiar sense of urgency prickled at Jake's spine. It didn't take a genius to foresee the storm brewing. They were already standing at the edge of a cliff. He just needed to make sure they didn't get pushed over. As Trevor reached for his phone to start planning the meeting, Jake's mind raced ahead, weighing variables and potential outcomes. What if everything went sideways? Could they handle Carson's response? The thought of Emily flashed to mind. Her unwavering trust felt like a lighthouse guiding him through the fog. Jake knew he had to believe in that light. When Jake returned home, Emily was waiting, her eyes brightening as he stepped through the door. How did it go? A smile broke across his face, fueled by hope and the adrenaline of taking the first step. We're having a town meeting this weekend. It's time to stand strong together. For the first time in days, her whole demeanor shifted. Yes. That's amazing, Jake. But beneath their joyful exchange, an unsettling thought lingered. How would Carson react to this newfound resistance? The dark shadow of uncertainty grew larger, tightening its grip around Jake's chest. With the shared hope buzzing between them, an even bigger, looming question awaited an answer. How far would Carson go to maintain control? What was the price of defiance? As Jake held Emily in that moment, he felt the storm brewing, ready to hit them. The next days would be crucial. Would they lead to something greater, or would Carson unleash his wrath upon them? The real battle was just beginning. The days passed with a palpable tension in the air. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown. As Saturday approached, anticipation electrified the small town, sweeping through the streets like a gust of wind. Jake could feel it seep into every crack and crevice, breathing life into the movement they were trying to spark. He spent nights working on a speech, drafting plans while Emily helped organize flyers and spread the word. Yet, as much as Jake wanted to focus on the community, Carson's shadow loomed larger. He could see him everywhere, in the worried expressions of neighbors, the whispered conversations that fell silent when Jake approached. They all felt it, that gnawing uncertainty that something big was about to explode. By Friday, Jake's heart hammered like a drum. He walked through the sleepy town, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows across sidewalks. Flashes of conversations with Emily danced in his head. She was steadfast, reporting back excitedly about how people were responding. People are hungry for change, Jake, she had said, enthusiasm lighting up her voice. But even her hopeful tone couldn't chase away Jake's unease. What if it all fell apart? On the eve of the meeting, he tried to calm himself. After a quiet dinner, he had sat on the porch under a canopy of stars, his thoughts swirling. It's just a meeting, he muttered to himself, but deep inside, he knew it was more than that. It was a stand not just for their town but for everything they stood for. When Saturday finally dawned, the air crackled with energy as residents gathered in the community center. The room buzzed with anxious chatter, filled with faces he knew: friends, parents, shopkeepers. Each person brought with them a piece of hope, and Jake felt a mix of pride and fear wash over him. He stood at the front with Trevor, who gave him a supportive nod. Emily sat in the front row, her presence a steadying force. As Jake stepped up to the microphone, he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, heart racing. Thank you all for coming, he began, voice slightly trembling but growing steadier with each word. We're here today because we've realized something crucial: we can't let fear dictate our lives any longer. We have the power to stand together. The room fell quiet, absorbing his words. Carson has tried to divide us, to make us believe that our voices don't matter. But we are stronger than we think. Together, we can fight back. As he spoke, excitement spread through the crowd. A few people clapped, and more followed. It was gathering momentum, waves of determination cascading against his words. Each clap felt like a heartbeat sync to the collective hope that filled the room, but just as he prepared to rally them further, the atmosphere shifted. The door swung open, and there stood Carson, his presence radiating an unsettling confidence. Condescending and smug, he surveyed the scene like a wolf among sheep. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Fear was back, creeping into their hearts. Jake's mind raced, battling the instinct to flee. But as he searched for Emily's eyes, he saw her unwavering trust, igniting a fire within him. Don't let fear silence you, he shouted, turning back to the crowd. The moment was fragile, hanging in the balance. Would they rally together, or would Carson's presence sour their bravery? As Jake squared his shoulders, ready to face both Carson and the crowd, he felt the tension stretch to a breaking point. The real battle was no longer just about words. Would this stand bring them closer to courage, or would Carson's power crush them before they even started? The stakes were rising, and the clock was ticking. What would happen when Jake confronted Carson face to face? Would he emerge victorious, or would defeat shadow their town once more? Jake felt a bolt of courage surge through him. This was it. This was the moment he had been preparing for, and he couldn't back down now. His voice, steadier than before, echoed in the large room. This isn't just about Carson. It's about us, our neighbors, our friends, our families. It's about standing united against tyranny. Who's with me? A murmur spread across the audience, a rustle of newfound energy. One by one, faces lit up with determination. Small shouts of "We're with you" broke through the tension, rising like a tide. The pulse of hope thrummed through the room, giving Jake the strength to press on. Carson shifted, irritation dancing in the corners of his lips. He strode deeper into the hall, arms crossed, radiating a false bravado. Really, Jake? You think false bravado will save you? You're just wasting their time. His voice dripped with condescension that could harden hearts. Actually, I think real courage is what we need. Jake shot back, the words escaping before he could think twice. You've spent too long trying to silence us. The time for that is over. Gasps rippled through the crowd, shock mingling with excitement. Was he really challenging Carson like that? But Jake felt the warmth of conviction expand within him. It was liberating. Jake scanned the crowd, catching sight of Emily's eyes shining with pride. Beside her was Trevor, nodding vigorously, his enthusiasm infectious. They were ready to fight, to stand side by side. The room swelled with voices as the crowd began to chant, a rhythm echoing back against Carson's arrogance. Together. 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 Each shout resonated deep, drowning out doubt and fear. Carson's mask began to crack. He couldn't control the room any longer. You think this is a game? You think rallying together will change anything? I have power, and you're all just a group of dreamers. Dreamers. The word hung heavy in the air. But Jake felt something shift. The dreamers were right there, solid and real, refusing to turn back. You're wrong, Carson. It's the dreamers who change the world. It's communities joined in strength that break the chains of fear. And just like that, Carson's sharp facade fell, replaced with an ugly snarl. He marched forward, and Jake felt the crowd freeze. The simmering tension ignited, boiling over in a moment of collective silence. Step aside, Jake. You're embarrassing yourself, Carson sneered, an edge of menace creeping into his tone. Jake stood firm, heart pounding like a war drum. Not this time. The words spilled out, fierce and undeniable. I'm here for my friends, my family. We will not be cowed by your threats any longer. The room erupted into a whirlwind of voices, a wall of defiance rising against the weight of Carson's bravado. But amidst the chaos, Jake caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye. A child, a little girl with wide eyes stepping forward from her mother's grasp, small and fragile, but unyieldingly brave. Don't be scared. She shouted, voice thick with innocence. We can be strong together. That simple declaration cracked through the tension like a lightning bolt. The crowd's vocal intensity shifted, fueled now by the pure bravery of that child. It struck something deep within Jake. Carson faltered for just a moment, but in that pause, the tide had turned. Jake felt the strength of their shared spirit. They were a community, a family fighting for their future. As the gathering thundered with cheers, Jake locked eyes with Carson one last time. An unspoken challenge lingered between them, but the question remained, would they rally around this newfound hope, or would they be met with Carson's retaliation, now sensed on the horizon? Would this unity hold strong against the storm about to break? As the cheers filled the hall, Jake couldn't shake the uncertainty bubbling in his gut. What would the next move look like? Jake's heart raced as the crowd roared, voices blending into a deafening affirmation. He could feel the energy pulsing through him, but with every cheer, doubt clung to the edges of his mind. Carson's sneer flashed in his memory, a reminder of the fight that lay ahead. Together. Together. The chant surged on, rippling through the hall as neighbors, friends, and families united as one. He could see familiar faces: his old coach, Mrs. Blake from next door, the kid who always mowed his lawn without being asked. Each person was a piece in a puzzle that Carson had tried to scatter, yet, as the cheers continued, Carson stepped back, his bravado faltering just enough for Jake to seize the moment. "Look at us," Jake called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "Look at what we can do when we stand together." His words struck a chord, lighting a fire in the crowd. But Carson wasn't done. He shook himself, anger swirling in his eyes. "You think this is unity? You're just a mob, and mobs can be easily broken." His tone dripped with venom, striking Jake directly in his core. "Mobs?" Jake couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "No, Carson. This is a community. A community built on trust and teamwork, something you'd know nothing about." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, and Jake felt the weight of their belief backing him. But Carson had another trick up his sleeve. "I'd watch your back if I were you. It won't be long before the truth is out, and individuals here start questioning where their loyalties really lie." Jake's breath caught. What truth? What could Carson possibly know that could unravel their bond? The room dimmed slightly in his mind, shadows creeping in as he contemplated the threat. Before he could dwell too much on the implications, Emily stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Whatever you think you have against us, it won't divide us. We're stronger together, and we'll fight for what's right." Her words reignited the fervor in the hall, the crowd's response enthusiastic and full of resolve. Jake was grateful for her steadiness, a lighthouse amidst the stormy seas of uncertainty. But in that moment of hope, a silence settled, pregnant with tension. Carson's presence loomed large. He scanned the faces in the crowd, a twisted smile creeping onto his lips. "Fine, then. Bring it on, bring on your courage and your community." He stepped back, arms wide as if welcoming the challenge. "Just know that the truth is a powerful weapon. And truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it." Unease danced at the corners of Jake's heart. Carson knew something that they didn't, and the looming threat felt like a dark cloud gathering above their heads. As the crowd around him began to chant again, Jake felt the weight swell inside him. Would they be able to face whatever Carson had planned? The little girl's innocent courage from earlier was still fresh in his memory, adding a small sense of hope. But as adrenaline surged through his veins, he couldn't shake the nagging doubt: what truth could Carson be hiding? Jake raised a fist in the air, trying to bolster his own resolve as he led the crowd once more. Together. But in the back of his mind, the question echoed: how strong was their unity when shadows of doubt crept in? Jake would need to figure out not only how to fight for the community they had built but also to uncover the dangerous secrets lurking in the darkness, and as the cheers rang out, he stood at a crossroads, knowing the real battle was just beginning. What would happen when those secrets could no longer be contained? The room vibrated with energy as the crowd chanted, "Together. Together." Their voices intertwined like threads, weaving a tapestry of hope and defiance. Jake's heart thrummed in sync with the collective rhythm, yet an unsettling knot of anxiety twisted in his stomach. Carson's chilling words echoed in his mind. The truth. What truth? He glanced around at the familiar faces, noting their resolve. They were his allies, friends who had banded together in a time of crisis. Each person embodied a story, a shared history that Carson sought to unravel. The community had rallied behind him, and it felt solid until the shadow of doubt crept back in. Jake took a deep breath, his feet anchoring him to the floor as he let the fire of his conviction build. "We won't let fear drive us apart." His voice rose above the noise, slicing through the tension. The crowd's energy surged again, fueled by his words as it transformed into a roaring anthem of resilience. "Show him." Someone shouted from the back, and the phrase rippled through the crowd, igniting their spirits. They were determined, but Jake knew the battle wasn't just in front of them, it was within each individual heart that beat in solidarity. Carson, still lurking at the fringes, observed, his satisfaction barely concealed. He raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you can hold on to that unity when your own secrets start to unfold? His voice was a taunt, a bitter reminder that even in moments of triumph, vulnerability could surface. Jake clenched his fists. What are you talking about? Carson leaned forward slightly. You'll see. Every perfect community has a crack. And cracks can spread. Those words rolled through Jake's mind like an echoing drum. He swallowed hard, fearing what the crack might imply. The laughter, the warmth of the crowd, the hugs and nods of support, all of it seemed to flicker like a candle in the wind. Emily stepped closer to Jake, her expression resolute. We cannot let him shake us. You and I both know what this community stands for. We've fought too hard for each other. Jake nodded, feeling comfort in her presence. You're right. Together, we've overcome so much. We can withstand anything if we stand united. But beneath their determination, Jake sensed a shift, a flicker of worry. Could they really face whatever truths Carson hinted at? He could feel uncertainty weigh down heavy in the atmosphere, a tangible threat that darkened the air around them. As the chants grew louder, he stole glances at the dedicated faces surrounding him. Each person stood firm, believing a light could pierce even the darkest secrets. Still, in his heart, a quiet anxiety gnawed. Was it enough? Could they truly withstand the storm that was about to break? Then, a voice broke through Jake's thoughts. It was Tina, a high school friend he hadn't seen in years. Jake! She called out, her eyes wide with concern. Please. Listen to me. There's more to this than you think. You need to know what Carson has been doing. The crowd hushed, tension hanging like a heavy curtain. All eyes turned to Jake, waiting for him to respond, to lead them. His pulse quickened as he met Tina's earnest gaze. What had Carson done? Was there something deeper brewing beneath their community's surface? Tell me. He urged, leaning closer to Tina, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes studying the unfolding moment. With bated breath, he awaited the truth. Just as the crowd leaned in, a sharp blast from outside shattered the tension. The doors of the hall flew open, and a figure emerged, shadowy against the bright light. Jake's heart sank. This was the moment everything could change. In that heartbeat, he stood on the precipice of revelation, knowing full well that answers could lead to unity or divide them forever. What secrets lay on the threshold, waiting to burst forth? And as the figure stepped inside, Jake braced himself for the impact of truth. Would it pull them apart or transform them in ways they never imagined? As the figure stepped into the room, a hush descended like a heavy fog. Jake's heart raced, eyes locking onto the familiar shadows forming against the doorway. It was Mr. Carson again, but this time accompanied by a mix of somber faces from the community: a town councilman, a local business owner, and even a teacher. The air grew thicker and heavier, the tension palpable. Jake, Carson began, voice smooth yet carrying an edge of steel. We have to talk. Your little rally and the accusations, they have consequences. You think this is a game? His gaze swept over the gathered townsfolk, gauging their reactions, and Jake felt every heartbeat echo in the silence. Enough of your theatrics, Carson. What is this really about? Jake shot back, courage swelling within him like a gentle tide, waves of determination flowing through the crowd behind him. The reluctant unity he had ignited lit a fire not just in his heart but in their collective spirit. Carson smirked, tilting his head slightly as he considered his words. You're right. It's not a game. You're misled if you think the actions of this community can save you from the truth that awaits. Please, enlighten us, Jake said, not backing down. He turned, seeking Emily's eyes for strength. Her encouragement filled him with resolve. He could feel the pulse of their shared fear and hope, creating a tangible bond that wrapped around everyone present. It's about the business dealings, Jake. You're rallying people behind a false narrative, Carson continued, the wolf in him surfacing again. I've been helping. And while you've been digging your heels in the ground over ethics, I've been providing jobs and support for this town. What jobs? What support? Emily interjected, stepping dangerously close to Carson, her voice laced with defiance. You're using this community as a stepping stone for your own gain. Look at how divided we feel right now. Divided or enlightened? Carson shot back, clearly relishing the tension. It's easy to build a narrative, but the real truth is that people will follow you until their own fears come to light. The minute that happens, your togetherness crumbles. Jake stepped forward, eyes blazing with determination. No, Carson. You underestimate us. You don't know what this town stands for or how far we will go to protect each other. The people behind him exchanged looks of solidarity, nods that rippled through the crowd like a wave of certainty. Suddenly, Tina stepped up beside him, an intensity flowing in her voice. Carson's right, though. We've been afraid. We've been kept in the shadows of his influence for too long, believing that he was the only option. The crowd murmured in agreement, the energy shifting in favor of Jake's clarity. What do you propose? That we turn tail and run from the truth? Or embrace it? Carson challenged, a flicker of annoyance creeping into his demeanor. Embrace it. Jake shouted back, the conviction in his voice like thunder. Let us talk about the truth, our truth. We face it together as a community. And with that, voices rose like a roaring flame, filling the hall with cries of encouragement and solidarity. Each person added to the crescendo, uniting in strength, pushing Carson's aura of menace to the back of their minds. Hope took root, transforming fear into fierce determination. Carson, Jake said firmly, you can't use fear to control our lives anymore. We matter, our voices matter, and today is the day we claim that. The room shook, the walls reverberating with empowered shouts. You think this will end well? Carson sneered, but confidence had slipped from his stance. He was visibly flustered, like a wild animal losing its grip. You'll regret this. No, we won, Emily declared, stepping beside her brother. We will not allow your manipulations to tear us apart. In that moment, everything crystallized. The choice in front of them was no longer about survival. It was about embracing the truth, past mistakes, and every struggle they endured. They could either crumble under the weight of fear or rise together, unwavering, and that truth began to unravel. A voice from the back yelled, "What did he promise you, Jake? If it was any better than what we built ourselves?" That's right. Another chimed in. What's hidden in the shadows? Jake felt the emotional tide shift, a wave of honesty pushing against Carson's defenses. This isn't just about me, it's about all of you. Let us show him what united really means. Just then, the community's voices erupted into a chorus of affirmations. It was a symphony of connection, their truths becoming a beacon of light that illuminated the darkness Carson had cast over them. Together, they chanted, each voice strong and proud, weaving a tapestry that enveloped Jake and Emily, an anchor forged in shared resolve against the looming darkness. And as Jake stood among his people, Rachel turned to him, eyes shining. We're not afraid. We're done. The echo of that declaration filled the room, exploding through Carson's facade. Faced with the undeniable strength of their unity, Carson took a step back, realizing his play for dominance was faltering fast. You'll regret this, he warned, but it felt weak, desperate. No, Jake replied, heart swelling in gratitude for both his sister and the community that had surrounded him like a shield. We will not fear you. We will support one another through the darkness, no matter what. In that moment, Jake knew the battle had only just begun, but as the chants rang through the community center, hope surged within him like a thunderous storm. The truth would come to light, and together, they'd endure whatever tempest awaited them on the horizon. The world felt brighter, filled with potential as they prepared to face the challenge ahead together. And as they rallied, Jake promised himself one thing: they would shield each other, no matter what came next. His heart surged with strength, a promise forged under the light of unity and unyielding hope. As the dust settled, only one question lingered in the air: what movement would arise from their newfound strength? Would the shadows of division cling to them, or would they break free, stepping boldly into the dawn of an undeterred future? With their determination ablaze, the tides had turned. A new chapter awaited, one painted with the vibrant hues of courage, togetherness, and the light that only truth could bring. This was just the beginning. But for this pivotal moment, they stood united, hearts beating in time, determined to fight for their truth against all odds. Light piercing through darkness, igniting hope in every soul present. And that was all they needed to start anew. Now, don't just let this inspiration fade. You need to subscribe now to catch every story as it unfolds. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now, it fuels our journey and spreads hope like wildfire. Comment your reactions and feelings about how Jake and Emily overcame and transformed. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation in action. Don't wait not even one more second to share. We're in this together. True fans know the importance of standing strong in the face of adversity.